The problem of identity. What is the identity of a believer in Christ? Now, I've just found out because my wife and I just did this, the thing that gives us our DNA results and so forth. Ancestry, that's what it is, Ancestry.com. Found out I've got a lot more Irish in me than I knew. I'm about half Irish. I didn't know that. I thought I had more German or something in English. In any case, I don't care. I don't feel any different about myself having learned that I'm half Irish than all my life before that when I didn't know I was half Irish. It doesn't matter to me what my race is, because race is a non-issue for a Christian. A Christian is not identified with their racial group or with their gender group or with other fleshly considerations. Paul said, henceforth we know no man anymore after the flesh. If any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away. All things have become new. And therefore, whatever my identity may have been before I was a Christian, Jew or Gentile, Irish or German, whatever, I don't know myself or you by what your racial identity is. That's kind of a racist way of thinking. If you say, well, you're an African Christian, I'm a Caucasian Christian, and that's different, right? We're different from each other. Well, not in any way that's important. I guess our skin color is different, but if that's important to me, then I'm a racist, isn't it? I mean, if I judge people based on who their ancestors were or what country they came from or what their physical characteristics are, I'm not thinking like a Christian, I'm thinking like a racist. Paul said, we don't think that way anymore. 2 Corinthians 5:16, henceforth we know no man anymore after the flesh. Though he says we once knew Christ after the flesh, but from now we don't know him that way anymore. And he says if anyone's in Christ, he's a new creation. So our identity is not in being Gentile or Jewish or any other thing, but being in Christ. When I am in Christ, I'm absorbed into his identity. I share in his name. That's why I can act in his name, because his name and his identity become mine, along with every other person who's in Christ. We have one head, and we're all members of one body. And it's not racially distinguished. It's diverse, but not distinguished racially. Those things are not important. William Varnier is actually a Gentile, but he was at one time a major leader in the Friends of Israel movement. He's not a Messianic Jew, but he has in some ways critiqued Messianic Judaism, though he's very favorable toward Israel. In one place he wrote, is the assumption that Jewish believers ought to seek to maintain their Jewish identity a valid one in light of Scripture's teaching about a believer's new identity? He says texts like 2 Corinthians 5:17 and Galatians 3:28 are a key in this regard. To Paul, every believer is a new creation, something that didn't exist before. That new person was not to be defined by fleshly distinctions, be they distinctions male, female, slave or free, even Jew or Gentile. While these distinctions still exist, of course, they are not where one's identity is now found. From now on, we recognize no one according to the flesh, 2 Corinthians 5:16. Is maintaining one's ethnic identity really what any believer should be vitally concerned about, whether he is Chinese, Latino, African American, or Jewish? Whatever his background, from the moment of regeneration, a believer is in Jesus Christ. And he should no longer define himself according to worldly, fleshly standards and distinctions. Even though he may still retain those outward distinctions, they should not matter to him anymore. And all that should matter now is who he is in Christ, unquote. I certainly agree with that 100% because that's what the Bible teaches. It does not teach something opposite that in any place.